All right, well, welcome everybody to yet another episode of the Quad Damage Podcast, which, according to the three handsomest and smartest men I know, is the best boomer shooter podcast on the interwebs. But that's just the opinion of three men, so don't worry about it. I'm High Functioning Medium, joined today by Deadforge.
What's up?
And HyperVerse.
How you doing?
And last but not least, of course, is our special guest today. Some may know him as the Sorcerer Supreme, the crusader for the condiment that hot dogs need, but no one's brave enough to use. I'm talking the one and only. Can I get a hey-o? We're under the Mayo.
Hey-o!
It's funny. People call me exactly that every day when I wake up in the morning. I see that those exact words. That's funny. Hello, everyone. Hello. For the invitation.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Isn't
there a channel called Under the Ketchup or something, or mustard or something? I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh man, like, that's bringing up old drama. That's the 2020 drama, man.
Yeah,
It was. I won't say much about it, but it was someone's like 3-hour or 1-hour response to my Resident Evil 3 remake review, and it was like text to speech, and it was weird, man. It was really weird, and they called themselves Under the Ketchup, and then we talked personally, and then he changed it after that.
Yeah,
but that's all I'll say. All right, that's all I'll say. It's spilled milk under the bridge from 4 years ago. I'm sure he's gone on to do better things.
Nice. Deadforge. Yeah. Deadforge, you want to do your thing? Deadforge.
Yeah, sure. I guess. Tradition's pretty good. Might as well stick with it.
Shit thing.
He has a little intro that he likes to do. Oh, and they require ornaments to use. Yeah, props.
Okay. All right, I'm back. Are you ready?
Yeah,
ready.
Oh, what the fuck?
Oh man.
There we go.
I need to practice this.
It just bent. All right, let's get booming.
Get booming.
All right.
Yeah, nice one.
Works 100% of the time. Maybe 50%.
Yes, yeah. 80% of the time, it works 20% every time. Yeah.
Exactly. That's all you ever need. We're being honest.
Yeah. Mayo, we all know who you are, but perhaps not everyone watching knows who you are, your backstory, and how you got into things. So do you just want to give us the shakedown on the Mayo-verse? How'd you get started in YouTube?
Oh God. Okay, so you want to go all the way back?
The Mayo-verse.
Yes.
It was. I made a YouTube channel in 2011, and it was focused on like my local Mortal Kombat matches. And then I started making some guides for the community because Mortal Kombat 9 was my first competitive fighting game, and so I kind of wanted to be part of the community a little bit. Started talking about strategy, and it got some decent attention. You know, those videos got a few thousand views, and I mean in a competitive Mortal Kombat community, getting a few thousand views means that there's a lot of those views is probably people who are playing competitively, which is your audience. Much more than like a casual appeal. And so I was happy with that. And then I kind of dropped it after a few years. I didn't play MK so much and just kind of left the channel alone. I never did anything other than fighting game strategy stuff for NRS games for like 7 years, just periodically. And it wasn't until the God of War video, one of my most infamous videos, how God of War was ruined, which is a year before my Doom Eternal stuff. So that's 2019, and no one watched that. It's like one of my biggest videos of my entire channel's history now, but it only got 1,000 views in the first year.
Yeah,
and so it's not like that video got me known. It was then the next year, as a lot of people who know me know. When I defended the design of the Marauder in Doom Eternal, just kind of randomly, not looking to get into the YouTube space at all, honestly, not interested. But I was like, I kept on hearing everyone shitting on this enemy type, and I was like, I can't be the only one who had fun fighting him. There's no way. It's just me.
Yeah.
And so I made a video and I defended him and I said how I felt. Now, obviously, I could probably articulate it way better now, 4 years ago. I mean, 4 years now. But at the time, I think I did my best to kind of express how I was feeling and give my examples. And the video just blew up.
That's how I found you.
The Marauder is actually a really good enemy in my opinion.
Oh, it's
I've always had that opinion.
Yeah,
I
skill up from what I remember. Yeah.
Well, I as I've gotten older, I understand people who don't like the Marauder more, but I still do not agree with the idea that he is a bad enemy. I'm okay with him being an enemy that not everyone particularly loves, right? Sure, fine, whatever. People can have their opinions, but I very much disagree with the idea that it's an objectively bad addition to the game. The game, and that was the whole issue. Is that's what was being stated by some people, and that's why I wanted to come out against it. And I think a lot of people like that. And I immediately got very scared of instantly becoming a channel that was just about Doom. I was really scared of that, even though that's what blew me up there that in the beginning, because I had seen what had happened to other channels that maybe just started talking about one thing and then they got stuck talking about one thing and then they started hating what they were doing. I kind of saw that. I saw Angry Joe getting frustrated with his audience that was constantly demanding the angry reviews and not his movie content. And he felt like he was unhappy with what he was doing at the time. I was like, oh God, I don't want this to happen to me. And so I immediately did Resident Evil 3 remake review. And I was like, I'm going to talk about RoboCop. I'm going to talk about Mortal Kombat. And here we're going to talk about God of War. I immediately wanted to send that message of, hey, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to fucking do whatever I want. I'm not going to be one thing, and you can be along for the ride or not. And I'm here 4 years later, a little more of a niche than I was in the big Doom days. Of course, I mean that's kind of a once in a lifetime thing. But I'm currently happy with where I am, and I'm enjoying the videos that I'm making. It's a slow year. There's nothing to talk about right now, so that's why I'm talking about 20-year-old PS2 games right now. But I still really enjoy what I'm doing. And I love talking about how games are made and how they're played and how games get you to play in a fun way. I love thinking about all games like that. Like what is a game's fun and how does a player get there? And how do they get there in a way that feels natural? And I've become kind of obsessed with that angle of games coverage over the past couple of years. And I kind of end up talking about every single game from that lens, which is what I think the people who watch me want to hear. So I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty needed voice because it's really easy to just sort of be the good community and just be like, well, if you're not at a level, you wouldn't understand that kind of attitude. Yeah. But one thing I don't like that attitude at all is that you're usually a lot better about providing criteria for what you're referring to, so it stands outside of you and isn't just like, well, my preference is expressed as. So it doesn't just sound like it's your opinion spoken eloquently in hopes to trick people into into repeating it. You're like, well, I've got X. This needs to be here. Doesn't that sound right to you? Now test it. That's what I tell you.
It's become like, if you can see one difference over my approach to things over the past 4 years, is that I feel like I've become a lot better at expressing solutions for issues that I find. Yeah. Right. Like saying this doesn't work, but if you did this would make this work like this, and this would connect to this, and this is why this change would be better. I try to be a lot more positive in that way instead of just saying, well, this is bullshit, this is cheap, this is so, I'm trying to find some other way to connect it to the discussion, which has been a really fun way to kind of
we'll get a little bit more into the intricate elements of what makes something good or bad. And
I want to talk I always refer to my Shadow Warrior 3 review, right? Like a lot of channels reviewed Shadow Warrior 3. A lot of them did, right? And I'm not going to say I have the best review. I think G-Man's review is amazing. I think a lot of people have better reviews than mine, but mine is the only one that spends 4 minutes talking about the reloading mechanic and how and how the reload encourages weapon variety, and then then I dive into the whole kind of challenge matters whatever philosophy I've developed. I'm the only guy that's going to talk about that aspect, and it's going to make certain people think, oh yeah, it does work that way. That's interesting. That's
I also really feel like that was a very under reviewed, under covered game as well.
Absolutely, it was underappreciated.
I mean, it's probably very underappreciated. It's one of the biggest Doom Eternal clones that there are,
Yeah.
and like if you really want to just get it down to the nitty-gritty,
It's the biggest you could get. It's the biggest you
Yeah.
could get to an actual Doom Eternal clone.
Yeah.
You know, and it's
but it still added enough
Yeah.
spice to like.
oh god,
be
it's
very
still its own
unique.
game. You know, it's
I
still its
even
own
like
game. It has its own rhythm.
I love the like their version of the gory kills, you know, and you actually get like a unique
Yeah.
weapon from each of the enemies that you kill.
It's a wonderful evolution of the concept.
Yeah,
Well,
that was great.
they took what was created and they gave it an evolution rather than just cloning it, essentially. I keep going back to Shadow Warrior 3 and I try to get into it, but I can't get past the fact that I loved the first game so much and disliked the second game so much.
Okay.
That the third one sits
When
in
you
this
say
kind
first,
of...
do you mean like first or reboot?
No, the
2013, right?
2013 one.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Is it 2013 it came out?
I think. It
Yeah, I
is.
think 2013 or 2014. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
actually my introduction to Shadow Warrior as well.
Yeah.
And I liked it quite
was
a bit.
So good.
And I actually went to play the original after that. And yeah, Shadow Warrior 2 I have a lot less time with. I haven't beat the original either. I mean, I beat like the remake, but not the classic game.
Yeah. The classic, I mean, you say it in the word, it's the classic game. You know, there's a reason why it's part of the Holy Trinity. And we will get on to Duke Nukem in a second, of course. It's playing right now. But with Shadow Warrior 3, Mayo, where do you think that they could go with that concept if they made a Shadow Warrior 4?
Oh god, like I kind of wouldn't want it to be an evolution of that concept because I think what's so cool about Shadow Warrior 3 is that it is such a different game that if they did a Shadow Warrior 4, I would want Shadow Warrior 4 to be something equally different and fresh.
Which I mean, kind of does go with the like reboot series. I mean, each game is pretty drastically different than the last.
I was going to say that, yeah. Each one
The
has
funny
its own
part is
feel.
that the reboot like brought back this kind of old school shooter before Doom 2016 came along, but like never really got the attention for kind of bringing it back. I guess because Shadow Warrior is a little bit more obscure than Doom.
Yeah.
Well, it's also wasn't, but kind of didn't have Dusk kind of coming after it to kind of drag along with it by its and it also just wasn't as good. I guess it's probably
that time there wasn't really any. I mean, I guess that would have been.
This Painkiller and Hard Reset came out around that time, right? And they had that kind of old schooly sort of, feel.
Yeah. I mean, a couple of years before that, you had like Bulletstorm and some things like that too.
Yeah, there were titles.
Wolfenstein:
that were kind of,
The New Order, I think, came out 2014. So.
Yep. That's right.
Yeah, you had games that were trying to buck the trend, that were trying to bring it back. They knew by the mid 2000s that there was just something inside of us that still wanted that old school feel. You know, something that Bulletstorm tried to create, and games that came after, like you just said. But then it was Doom that just kind of like hit the nail in the coffin, right? Or maybe that's not the right phrase.
On the head.
But when Doom came out, Doom was the game that got
everybody bust out of the coffin.
This was a conversation that really kind of opened my eyes to the impact that Doom specifically had in bringing back that, introducing that retro feel to this new generation. Is that I was at a party and I talked to a friend that I'd known for a couple of years, didn't know much about his gaming history, but he mentioned that he just recently played Doom, and this was like 2018 maybe, or 2017, and I asked him, "Oh, cool. So do you know the other shooters in the series?" And he said, "No. The only shooter he ever played was Halo and Call of Duty." Yeah. And there were a lot of people like that, in a certain age group. Like those are the shooters they know for years, and then everyone's talking about this Doom game. It's like the level of Doom is the game that made those people play something old school for their first time. And they loved it. Like they're like, it was incredible because they were doing something they had never even done before in a shooter. And that's why Doom 2016 ended up being so important.
You guys know that it's Doom 2016's birthday in 2 days, right? May 13th.
I did not. Yeah. Okay. Well, happy birthday, Doom.
Again.
That was
again. Yeah.
Happy birthday, Doom.
Yeah. Nice.
We miss you, Doom. Doom, we miss you. Come back.
We need another Doom game.
So eternal.
I'm so bored.
Okay, yes, I do say I think id should make a Quake game next, not a another Doom game. I do think Quake needs a return.
They should,
Well-
but I don't think they will with their
Probably
owners.
not.
I mean, like their owners require their next title to make like $400 million. Like that,
Yeah.
like that came out in the like those leaked
We need to-
memos or something.
We
right?
need
I
to
don't
stop.
remember.
Like the industry needs to just like stop with these stupid numbers that they want things to hit. I mean, you're like the amount of money like 10 years ago a game made to be considered successful was like 8 times less than it is now. And it's sure the cost of things goes up, blah, 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 blah. But like you make so much money off of these big titles, and then you want them to make stupid amounts of money that 9 times out of 10, most of them are never even going to come close to, unless it is such a huge hit like a Doom. But even then, some of those don't even come near like the expected range. Then you got AA and like indie games out here. Oh shit, it made like a couple million. Hell yeah. Like that's all we needed. It's like 10 times more than we expected.
Do you guys play Quake Champions?
No, I've never played it.
I played
Yeah.
for a few months, you know, like I liked it. It was fun, but it just doesn't grab me. Like
Yeah.
I was the guy excited about Unreal Tournament 4. That's what I wanted. I'm an Unreal guy, way more than I am a Quake guy. I just am. I love Quake 2 for its campaign, and I like Quake 1. I'm more of a Doom guy than a Quake guy, but Quake 2 is special to me because I played it very young, and it was my first multiplayer shooter. But as soon as I found Unreal Tournament, I was Unreal Tournament for life.
When it comes to like online
It's-
stuff,
man.
I'm Halo like all the way.
Yeah.
That's me. Because Halo was like my first ever. Well, Halo and Call of Duty were my first like games I played online when I finally got like internet connection to play online. And I mean, I would pick Halo any day versus Call of Duty, but
Yeah.
you know, Halo still kind of continued that like old school mentality of deathmatch and stuff with its own like innovations here and there. But it kind of still is rooted in that a similar place as like Unreal and Quake in that arena style, even if it is a little different in the way you play.
Yeah, you can. I mean, with
yeah.
how far shooters have changed over the years, I can see a lot more similarity between Halo and older shooters as well. It wasn't that far off the formula like things are now.
So,
Oh yeah, and you asked about Quake Champions. I was going to say I haven't played Quake Champions, but I have played Unreal Champions. So
that's a
1 and 2.
different franchise, though, right? Unreal Championship to Unreal Tournament.
Yeah.
I always got
Hey,
confused
championship
between
tournament.
I was reading about it earlier today, and I'm like, there's Unreal, the original Unreal Tournament, which is
Unreal Champions, not
1999.
championship.
Then there's 2003, 2004, then Unreal 3. And I'm like, how is Unreal Tournament 3 the 4th game in the series, but they're calling
But then
it
in
3?
between there, you have Champions 1 and 2 on Xbox.
Yeah, and also Unreal, the original single-player campaign. It seems to have faded into obscurity, but there's Unreal 2, The Awakening. And, like, no one has played that game. I didn't even hear about it. But
Yeah, it's really confusing, like the way that they did that. I mean, because they just started throwing dates at the end of it. It's like Unreal Tournament 1999, Unreal Tournament 2004.
Well, I mean, it's
In case you're
being.
confused, just
I mean,
pick the
were
year.
you there for it happening? Were you playing in those years?
Me? No. I was born in 1998,
Okay,
so no,
okay.
definitely not.
Well, I was, so I'll disagree with you a little bit and say that in its time, like the year naming really wasn't like even a thing because it was just Unreal Tournament. That was the first one.
Right.
And then it was 2003, and so we're like, oh shit, this is the update. And then it was 2004, and so like being in the years, it didn't really
Right, I get how it would
feel
make more
wrong.
sense in the context of like as they released, but now like looking back, it's really confusing because you're like, wait, which one's Unreal Tournament? When someone says Unreal Tournament and they're talking about the like first game, what are they talking about? Are they talking about Unreal? Are they talking about Unreal Tournament?
They're talking
Unreal
about
Tournament?
they're
You know what I
talking
mean?
about the first one, or they're talking about 2004 because 2003 was basically an incomplete version of 2004. It was like a demo. To
Right,
it.
right.
It had a couple.
Yeah,
game
that's
modes
what I'm saying. Like,
so
I don't think
one
it's
or
confusing in
2004, I think.
like if you were around when they released, but I think it's confusing for some people looking back when you're trying to like decipher between
Which one do
games
I
and you don't know that
play?
much.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
So
then
what
it's
is
so
it
funny is that when I when they said that you wanted to talk Duke and Unreal, So like that, I was like, okay, yeah, I played Unreal Tournament 1 and 2.
No, it was championships.
I thought, but it was actually Unreal Champions 1 and 2 on Xbox.
Okay.
And I was like, oh wait, because I was like, I looked at the box art for Unreal Tournament 1 and 2, and I was like, no, that's not it. So I was like, okay, I went and like looked at our list of Unreal Tournament games. I was like, Unreal Champions, okay, and I looked at the box art, I'm like, okay, that looks familiar. And the Unreal Champions 2 is the one I played the most of, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's the game right there. And I mean, it was a cool ass game. I don't know what the opinion was back then, but when I played it growing up, I never played it online or anything, but it was really fun. And apparently, based on the trailer, it had a Mortal Kombat character in it.
Yes,
which
it did. Raiden
was Raiden. Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember who it was, but I saw in the trailer it said someone from another universe, and I was like, ooh. But I never did look up who. But yeah, I mean that made me like it even more. But yeah, it was a cool ass game. I mean, it introduced me to all the crazy Unreal Tournament stuff for sure. And then I would later go on to play Unreal Tournament 3, which I liked, even if it wasn't perfect.
Yeah. Did Epic delist the championship games, or was it just the tournament games and the?
I don't even know if Champions was on PC or not. Was it?
Was it a console thing? I think it may have been.
Sure.
Yeah.
Might have been exclusive to console.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we'll never have the opportunity to do so now because those games don't. I mean, thankfully, I bought Unreal Gold, just before the delisting happened, so I can still play that. Yeah. That's literally the only Unreal game, and it looks like had I had the opportunity to play it, it would have easily been one of my favorite franchises, just because it's so. The mythology of it, the history of the franchise. When they delisted it and they said, oh yeah, Unreal 3X is still going to be available for you, I was like, finally, I'm going to get to play an Unreal multiplayer game. And then they just quietly cancelled it. And the community was helping with the new Unreal game, and I saw the footage of that, and I was like, my God, that looks fantastic. I can't wait to play it. And then that got cancelled as well. I was watching Civi's video earlier today about the Epic Mega Special that he did, and he went on talking about how it's the house that built the whole, company, and the man is 110% right on it. Every word he said was kind of hitting me. How you could just piss all over your legacy like that just for Fortnite, the Fortnite McMansion or whatever he called it. The whole thing was disrespectful. I mean, does anyone have any opinions on the delisting of Unreal and the loss?
I mean, I think I have an opinion briefly, just on the opinion like of delisting games in general. I don't think that it should ever be a thing.
No,
I don't think,
it should
unless
never.
It's just like no. I mean, even in the case of it could be something that's just like whatever. But I don't think it should be a thing ever. It should be available once it's released. It should be. They should do what. If they don't want to support the game anymore and they don't want it to like re-release it or whatever, just do what Bungie did with Marathon and make it a freely distributable game that anybody can do whatever they want with, and it'll always be that way. It's like,
what is the difference? What is the difference between what you just between what you just said then and release the game and releasing the source code so that others can? I'm assuming that releasing.
I mean, one is freely distributable, so like that means that you could just take the game and you can release it and do whatever you want. As far as like source code, that means giving people access.
Can use it.
The developers to use the code to make another game or remake the game, etc. I mean, I'm sure that falls into a little bit of a different category.
Yeah,
Go mod crazy too.
But then again, people are modding Marathon because it's openly distributable and they can. I mean, it's just like the people who put it on Steam don't own the game. They don't even like Bungie's not even even connected to it. Didn't approve it. Didn't, like I said, freely distributable. So as long as they're not charging money for it, they can have it on whatever they want.
Yeah, that actually happened to that Myth 2 game they made too, right before Halo. That Soul Blighter game. I think the same thing happened. Like the only way to play it now is like just one of those super fan patch type things. It just kind of marshals their efforts and puts it all together and makes this super version kind of like Arx Fatalis had too, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
For Libertatis.
Cool. Mayo, we've chatted a bit about Unreal Tournament. So let's Duke Nukem. So what's your history with Duke Nukem? This was one of the games that you selected for showcasing today.
Well, yeah, I didn't necessarily be like, oh, I want to talk Duke Nukem. You guys more asked like, what footage do you want running in the background? And I was like, hey, why don't you throw in some Duke Nukem 3D and Unreal Tournament? It's not necessarily that I'm like here with the mission of talking to about those games, but I would be happy to tell the story of how I found Duke Nukem 3D. I mean, it's pretty simple. I was a kid and I was at my like a neighbor's house. He was like a house party, and then like him and my dad were playing jam guitar. It was like a neighborhood like band thing, and I was a little kid. I was at the house while my dad was playing guitar with these guys, playing in a band for the neighbors and sitting in their lawn chairs, barbecuing like weird American house party. And but my neighbor's laptop, his work laptop, was open in the living room. And I saw the icon of Duke Nukem 3D. It was just on there, and I ran that shit. And I had played Doom a little bit as like too young to remember, but I was old enough by 1996 to be playing Duke Nukem and thinking, "Holy shit, this game is yeah. There are tits in this game, and this is." Awesome. This character is awesome. The action is great. The graphics are amazing. The violence is amazing. The music, like it was Duke Nukem 3D is the shit. It is so good. And so that game has always had a really big impact on my life. And I didn't own it. I just played it on that laptop like a couple nights whenever I went over to that house. But it became a part of my early memories, very, very strongly embedded into how I see things.
Actually, nice. You know, I knew of like Duke and like Duke 3D before I ever actually played a Duke Nukem game. And the first Duke Nukem game I ever played was actually Duke Forever.
Unfortunate.
Well, listen. But like, I had a friend who had the game. Like I said, I knew of Duke Nukem 3D and stuff, but I didn't really know about Duke Forever coming out. And so they had the game and brought it to my house. We played it, and I was like, dang, this is actually pretty cool. I was like, I mean, it's just because of the, you got shit jokes and like just, crude humor. And I'm like, I'm like middle school or something. So, I mean, like, it was just funny and enjoyable.
Yeah.
But then as comparing it to other things that I played like similarly around the time, like you could compare it to like The Darkness 2 or Bulletstorm or even Call of Duty or Halo or anything else, and it just was kind of lacking in many areas in comparison to any of those games.
One way to put it.
From a story standpoint, and also from gameplay, just graphics in general. I mean, if you look at it from a humor standpoint, I find it kind of enjoyable, but it's not enough for me to want to go back and like play it again just to experience it, because I don't think the overall experience is good enough. But in 2017, when Gearbox got the rights to Duke Nukem and everything, and they released the World Tour Edition, is when I finally got my hands on Duke 3D, and man, did I fall in love with freaking Build Engine and all those games.
Yeah,
phenomenal.
There's just a feel to things. The way
and I had got my hands on Doom and Doom 2 when I got the BFG edition on 360, and so I had some experience with those games and everything. So when I played Duke, I was like, dang, this is just like a whole nother level of this like old school experience, and it's cool to see kind of where all this environmental interactivity and things that you would see in other games came from. It was actually kind of interesting when I was playing Borderlands recently when I did a video. I kind of mentioned a little bit about Duke when in that video, but I was kind of like, the comparison point was in a way to, in Borderlands, you go into everything you loot, like from containers to toilets to like all these things. So it's not quite as intricate as something like that, but it's like that DNA is kind of there. Or, you go into something like Half-Life and you're messing with a microwave and messing up the scientist's dinner or whatever. And different things like that.
Half-Life 2
and Half-Life 2.
Environmental and that was like it was revolutionary at the time.
But it all kind of starts from Duke. And while Quake was over here going, hey, we got like full 3D cool ass, like, craziness in this area, Duke's like, all right, well, we're not quite as advanced in that direction, but hey, we got like environmental activity and a lot more intricacy in the layers
Real
to
life.
each level.
It was a
things
display of
the other
how
games
much
didn't
more
have.
ambitious you can be with the limited technology.
Yeah.
Because the greater technology was actually more limiting, oddly enough.
Yeah.
What's your experience with the other build engine games? Have you played the Shadow Warriors and the Bloods?
I never played Shadow Warrior.
You what?
I never
To this day?
To this day? I actually got it a few years ago, and I tried to run it, and I had some kind of issue with the display. I don't remember what it was. There was something.
Yeah.
I wanted to play it, but for some reason I couldn't. I don't
can
remember
only
why,
run
but
it
I
in
should.
720.
Great, but I want to. It's a game I want to play. But Blood is a game I discovered in 2019 because of Civi. Because I was in my adult life, I was kind of getting back to shooters, which I had not really played much of since like Resistance 3 on PlayStation 3. I kind of fell out of shooters for a while. And then I found Brutal Doom in 2015, and I was like, "What is this?" And then I started getting into like watching videos, and so it's not like I have a whole bunch of old school shooter experience in my entire life. I do have certain games, but there's a lot of games that pass me by because I tend to obsess over single titles and focus on them. I would play like 3 games a year, but they were my games. So there's a lot of stuff that kind of passed me by as a gamer. And only in the recent years, since my rediscovery of them around 2015, 2017, that I started looking at what I had already kind of missed. And I was like, you know what? I don't know if I ever, I haven't played all the way through Duke 3D in 15 years. Let's go back and do that. I started getting back into it, finding the new stuff. Doom 2016, of course. And so that was kind of a way to get back into it. And now I'm trying to think about all those games I haven't played. And that's how I got into Blood. And Blood, it instantly shot up to, God, like maybe top 5 shooters of all time for me now.
I still need to get back into Blood because I only played a few levels back when it was before they released the new one. What is it called? Blood.
Fresh Supply.
Fresh Supply.
That's the one I played.
I went and bought. I bought Fresh Supply recently. So, well, actually, I was able to get it for free because I already owned the game before, and I didn't even know I could get it for free, but I could. So I had Blood 1 unit Whole Blood, which was like the re-release after the original that included like DLC and stuff, and that version just didn't function on modern computers. Like it just didn't work. I mean, like I'd go to play it and it would be like windowed. And then it would drop to like the bottom corner of the screen, and then I could like move forward, but I couldn't attack, and I don't even know what was going on.
Just like that.
So I never really got to play much Blood.
Oh, that's
so
too
I still
bad.
need to do that.
You should dedicate a weekend, man. Dedicate a weekend to Blood, and play
it's
on.
It's very me though, because I'm a big Evil Dead fan and stuff. So
what's the difficulty you should play on?
Extra crispy.
That's not the highest one though, is it?
Isn't it?
You should not play on the highest. You should play on like the second.
No,
or something like that.
It's notorious, isn't it? The medium level is like hard level in every
the
other
difficulty
game.
level that basically turns the cultists into instant hit scanners. You need that difficulty. If you play lower than that, if you're playing Blood for the first time, this is take my advice, audience.
Yeah.
If you're playing Blood for the first time and you pick a difficulty and you feel like you can just walk into a room and start shooting, if you feel like that, then you're not playing on the right difficulty level. You need to be scared to death when you come around any corner in Blood. So therefore, you start throwing the TNT around corners. That experience is so vital to the enjoyment of Blood that you have to play on that difficulty, or you're not going to get it. You just won't get it.
Yeah, and I'll post an addendum to that. Lightly Broiled is probably the most accessible difficulty that doesn't put you on your ass and like kick you out of caring about the game, but it's
okay.
Yeah, it's. I think
so.
It's
There's
like right in the middle of everything. So
there's no gatekeeping when it comes to game difficulty for you. You're like play it or whatever is a challenge, but you're comfortable at.
That's what you have to do. Why would you not want someone to play at the difficulty that is, at their skill level or maybe a little bit higher?
That brings like a whole, the talk about like game difficulty and stuff. I think. I mean, every game has like a difficulty that developers want you to play on. Yeah, I guess. But
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
and
I
it
gotta
varies
tune
from
on
game to game.
balance.
Sometimes you can like play on normal, and it's actually quite easy. But then again, that's if you're like really good at shooters or something, and you play a shooter on normal, it might be quite easy. But then if you play on hard, it actually might be the right level. It's kind of like with Doom. Usually, the recommended is hard, not normal,
And you know
on
what?
all the
Like
games.
there's
So
some people that genuinely enjoy a shooter by going in on normal difficulty and not necessarily being, punished so hard. They like
right,
they
just
like
the
shooting.
power
They like shooting
fantasy.
the bad guys. They might die a
Yeah.
few times, sure, right? But they're mostly just like, yeah, I'm boom boom. I'm a cowboy. I'm a cowboy,
Right.
right?
If you
And
guys
that's
want
that's
that,
cool.
go
If that's
play
how you enjoy games,
Bulletstorm,
then
because you
you,
can
you
play on the
I
hardest difficulty, and that
you
game's
can
quite
enjoy
easy.
games like that, and there's no judgment there, right?
Of course, I
But
agree.
we want there to be a higher level experience.
Yeah.
That should
Yeah.
always be there. That should always be available. Oh God,
I-
look at this background footage.
I feel.
Let me pour myself. Let me pour myself a drink real quick.
Oh, my playback is paused due to inactivity. I didn't even realize that, so I don't
Well,
even know
you're
what
the
you're
lucky
looking
one.
at.
Okay, that's interesting. 'Cause that,
Yeah.
that tells us that it doesn't pause it for everybody. It just pauses it for you. Because I'm fiddling
Yeah.
with mine and changing it, but apparently that's why I've fixed it. I was like, oh, it's going to tune out real quick.
See, I was thinking about that myself because I've seen it happen a couple of times. I don't know why it hasn't happened for me yet, but
Yeah.
like I've had it happen before where it says that, and I just leave it because it'll like go the whole thing and whatever. But yeah, so I guess that's individually based. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you just have to move your cursor in or something. I
No,
don't know
no,
what
I'm moving the
inactivity is.
cursor over it now. Yeah, I was going to say that with Turbo Overkill, I couldn't get past Ripper even on the medium difficulty, and I had to bump it down to the low difficulty just to be able to get past
Which
her.
episode is he in?
And that
Ripper, like
she?
that fight went through several balance.
I haven't even played the game yet, so
It went through
Yeah.
a lot of changes, and I mean, if you
I
look
know
at,
you've been
so
involved
bad.
with it. Yeah.
yeah, like from my first review of when Act 2 came out, that like I played Ripper like a week before Act 2 came out, and then that's a full year before the final game came out. So Ripper went through several discussions and changes, but she's a tough one. Like it's just like there's no way to make her not a tough one, because if you tweak something about her just slightly, she becomes like laughably easy. It's weird. It was really the testing of that fight in particular was weird, but she ended up needing to be like a wall. Like, here, you got to get past this, right? You got to find a way past this, and when you do, like, it feels good, right? Because it's a tough fight.
It was, yeah, and like I said, I feel no shame in admitting that I had to bump it down. I know that you were quite involved with the development of Turbo Overkill. Kind of to what extent in which you were involved?
Oh, let's see how much I can talk about. I mean, actually, that's a really fun topic that I don't often get to talk about.
Fire away. Let's
and
go.
getting if anyone's interested in some behind the scenes Turbo Overkill,
Absolutely.
Of course, give it to us. Yeah.
I'll give you the scoop. I'll talk about what I feel like I can talk about.
It's like you get that big old scoop of mayo and throw it on the hot dog kind of thing. You know?
I helped guide some aspects of Turbo Overkill from about Act 2 to the release of Act 3. We would talk, me and the dev Wadaholic, we would talk about certain things. He would send me builds early, and I would say if something was working the way that I feel like he was intending it to work. Like, and here's my biggest contribution, I think, to Turbo Overkill is the way that the plasma rifle works. The plasma
my
rifle,
favorite weapon.
Here's an example of something that I was able to effect in Turbo Overkill about a week before Act 2 came out. He had introduced this microwave, the plasma catcher, where you can catch the projectiles. And originally, the projectiles were centered in the middle of the screen. So you would catch like 5 orbs, and they would be spinning right in front of you, and then you would launch them straight forward. And that's how the animation went. And I told him that I can't see who I'm shooting at. Like, you've completely obscured my view with all this plasma. Like, I don't even know what I'm launching this at anymore. So I said, why don't you make it more like Ghostbusters, where they catch the ghost above them, right? and you hold the plasma projectile at the top of the screen, and then you shoot at who you're looking at. And he's like, okay, that's cool. So he did that, and then he sent me that build, and I played it, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's great. That feels good, man. But then I noticed that when I shot the plasma, it was flying down from the top towards the enemy at a diagonal, and so it was very easy to like hit their feet or go over them. You were aiming a diagonal invisible reticle basically. And I said, okay, so instead of that, you need keep the animation at the top of the screen, but right when you release the mouse button, you have to instantly suck the projectiles to the center so that they launch straight forward.
Yeah.
And then that's what he updated, and then that's the version of the plasma rifle that made it into the Act 2 release. Those are the kinds of little things that I was kind of brought on to maybe notice or find solutions for. Not so much being like, hey, we should have an enemy like this. He would instead ask me a question like, oh, the mauler or whatever, the guy that throws the mace at you. He's like, should I make this something you can catch with the plasma rifle? And I was the one to say, yes, absolutely.
Yes,
you have to let me do that. And so like that was kind of like the way I worked on Turbo Overkill. Right? Just kind of I was there to talk to. But it was great. Like it was some of the best times I've had in this channel history is being able to help in some way for a game that's so great.
Well, it's one of the best shooters of the year. One of the best shooters I've ever played.
Yeah,
I went recently back and
I still really need to play it.
You do, yeah.
You're missing out. You're really missing
my favorite
it.
boomer shooter that I've played.
It definitely looks like a me kind of game. So
yeah, it's up there with Cultic and Dusk and a Medieval. It's like it's the top tier. If you were to play Waterholic's other famous game, Total Chaos, you'd have no idea that it was the same guy that made both games. Okay. They're completely opposites, and it speaks obviously to his talent in game development, but it's just as good in my opinion as well. It's a proper horror game. And I was very surprised. It's clearly a very heavily modified version of GZ Doom, but that's what I believe the engine was that it was created in. But going back to
version of that one too. Did you see that pop up for Total Chaos?
I think that's the Unreal Engine 5 version he's doing, right? That's gonna look amazing.
I know we're talking Turbo Overkill and everything, but why is it that Phantom Fury, it looks like such a game that I would enjoy so much, right? While looking simultaneously mediocre, but also at the same time, I feel like I might still love it.
Right.
Or at least like it a little bit.
Yeah, I keep watching
more than
negative
most
reviews, and they just keep convincing me. I'm like, but it's so pretty.
It looks so cool and fun and enjoyable. Then I see the review, and I'm like, but they're making so much sense. And then I'm like, but it looks good though. Like,
here's the thing.
I mean, I don't know.
It is good at times.
The graphics with Ruby, and it was, is what it is. But
what were you saying, Mayo?
No, it is. That's what's so tricky about it is that it is kind of good at times. Like I kind of like it too. Like there's I had some moments in here. I'm like, okay, if this keeps getting better, then I'm in. But it didn't. Right.
So it's more like like Bethesda. Every time they release a game, it's like one step forward, one step back, one step forward, one step back. And that's the whole game, basically.
Keep chatting amongst yourselves. I've got a headset issue I just need to resolve. I'll fix this all in post, so just carry on.
Well, you can't hear that.
Okay.
Right.
But is that a good comparison where it's just kind of like one step forward, one step back, like from the beginning to the end of the game, where like, oh, that's really cool. If they did more of that, it'd be great. But then they don't do it, and then they do something else, and it's not good.
It's a game that I had no issues with for the first hour, basically, except for maybe like, oh, I feel like the enemies are a little too far away to be shooting the pistol here. Like other than that, I was like, okay, I'm having an okay time. But then the more you play it, the more it just kind of exposes itself to you, and and then we all know the rest of the story. I'm coming through somebody's mic. I can hear an echo of my voice.
Yeah, I think it's Robert.
Yeah, he's got something.
Got it.
Quick going on.
Okay.
I think your mic works because we can hear all this shit in your. Never mind.
Your mic's working. It's just we're not hearing you.
I just muted the laptop, so hopefully you got rid of that echo. 1 second.
Yeah,
That is one way to get rid of the echo. Now, Mayo, I haven't played Phantom Fury, but I've been kind of curious. Is it like it feels like to me like people are getting kind of underwhelmed that the game never really scales up at all. Is that like from a lack of set pieces or just empty environments or something, just not making it feel like it's very alive? I guess.
Well, it's more like I actually know, like level variety wise, it kind of does a decent job. Like you go to a lot of different places, the scenes change, the maps change. Like you can't really criticize it for that. It's just that the experience starts to really wear down on you. You start seeing more and more problems with the AI. The act of going through the levels just starts to feel a lot less, I don't know, fine-tuned. The level design, as the levels got more expansive and tried to get more ambitious, then you have to spend more time dealing with the gameplay to get through them. And the gameplay just starts, I don't know, the gameplay just starts to fall apart after a while.
Starts to be distracting more than
But there's zombies though.
And the bugs. I mean, seriously, like the bugs of the game combined with just the way that the campaign experience kind of falls flat as it goes along, it just made for a game that just wasn't that great, and it felt unfinished.
But there's zombies.
Yeah, and I think that's basically what 95% of like any channel that talks about shooters is basically saying. So it's like, it's not a controversial opinion.
Careful, hey, put it down. Put it down.
And like, it is what it is.
Yeah, that was kind of my view too. Is I didn't feel like the things that 3DR ended up kind of expressing their frustration with were particularly hot takes, or like they were kind of banding together to just dump on something. Like sometimes you'll see the IGNs of the world dogpile on a 7 out of 10 game and just be like, what is this crap? And it's like if they can't hook their wagon to it, they're kind of not interested in it.
Yeah, so but the channels that people actually watch in this community, like whether it's Jarek or it's Kirk or it's me or it's the channels that are on that get a lot more views but are still in our same kind of like genre discussion, G-Man, City, right? If you talk about and several others, Alpha Beta Gaming, there's a lot of more people that talk about all these kinds of games, and I think you'd be hard pressed to find a lot of examples of people who don't just give their honest opinion about the experience they have with the game. Right? They don't look for what other people are saying and then jump on the hate bandwagon. They just
it's kind of like the case with a lot of different communities, I think, too. Like there are like a lot of different communities. All the people that are within that community are giving a lot of good opinions and defending what they're talking about and giving good points. But
we don't always agree.
Right. But a lot of the big reviewers sites, it's always like it just feels like a dog pile of. We all have the same opinion, but we have no idea of how we're actually explaining this opinion. We just have an opinion.
Yeah.
That happens to all be the same thing, like a hive mind or something. And that goes for a lot of games, not just like Phantom Fury or anything, but, a lot of things out there. It's always the case. It's just weird.
Were you at all surprised by that reaction from 3DR?
Oh, I don't know how much we should get into. But, well, like I don't really care. Honestly, like people can, it was stuff said in private. So, I mean, I'm not going to get so upset about it. It's not like a public statement or anything, but people can think what they think, people can call, each other idiots if they want for their opinion. I don't really care about it on a personal level. What worries me more is, the idea that all the people involved with the game didn't realize that it was unfinished and not ready to release, and that it didn't have some serious fucking problems. Like that worries me more. That they apparently didn't know that, right? And they're upset.
Sounds like
they're upset at anyone. It's not that they're upset that people don't like their game. I'm more worried that they didn't already feel that way. Like they had to have seen that this was not ready. They had to have seen that the driving level is not like what the hell are we doing here? Well, they've got and they must have seen the AI just standing there and just staring at you. Like they had to have known, and so that worries me that their reaction is that everyone's an idiot. Like, how do you not know this? How do you not see it in your own game? That's a lot more worrying than the name calling.
Yeah, well, perhaps my
to indicate that they were assholes for just saying what they think in a private server that no one needed to know about in the first place.
Yeah,
I thought that was
I don't care what they said.
Way out of proportion. That it was like, listen, somebody said something much spicier about somebody they probably work with or something, just in passing. I was like, oh, that guy was a fucking idiot the other day. It's like it's not that big of a deal, but I was I was really more curious of linking the frustration with the response with the fact that people didn't like it and they liked it for legitimate reasons. Not that we need to speculate, were they rushed, were they frustrated or something, but it does kind of speak to like the atmosphere of that project being less than ideal to the point where they would get frustrated that this is not going so well, conceivably. Yeah. And then when it comes out, they're like, just get it out, go, and they're kind of like, and then they get frustrated that people are sort of not feeling like.
What do you think is the future for 3D Realms?
Man, I don't know. I'm not the kind of gaming YouTuber that keeps up with like all the publisher news and stuff like that and who publishes what game. I don't even know how to comment on what I think is going to happen to 3D Realms, but they've had all I know is that they've had some issues. I care about the games that I play, right? And if it's 3D Realms published, great. I don't really keep up with that kind of stuff, but I don't want people losing their jobs. I want studios making good games. I want them to have good directors, right? And so there's people there that can make games, obviously, right? And they just need better direction, and they can do it.
Right. It's, leadership's important.
But it is, they say bullshit
not
rolls
setting
downhill.
Expectations too high or setting goals, like we mentioned at the very beginning, of needing a certain amount of money. And also not over-promising things, as we've seen with games like Cyberpunk, or some may say Starfield, and so on. These like big games, and even go back to like something like No Man's Sky or something. Obviously not necessarily FPSs, but these games were like overhyped, things were promised. Nobody within the studios ever expected these things to happen, but they were still said by people with more power to make sure that investors were still invested and people were still hyped for it, so they would meet sales. Then when it comes out, people were disappointed. And even this game is one of those things. Like, a lot of things about it were really hyped up. A lot of features were shown that are not in the game and things like that. And then they get the game, then there's all this talk about internal issues and so on. Just like with something like No Man's Sky, PlayStation didn't give them enough time, rushed them out, like whatever. Cyberpunk, the investors were pushing them to release the game. Whatever. It's just like, don't do that. Just don't promise things that are never going to happen within the time frame you have. Don't promise things to investors that you can't do. Don't show things in trailers to sell your game that's not even going to be in the game. Like, just don't do stuff like that. It's so easy just to not do those things, and then you never have to deal with the backlash of those things. And if like a game, if a game is coming along and you want it to release, don't announce it way before it's ready, and then you have to have it out at a certain time, because then if you don't release it in that time frame, then all the hype around it's going to be gone when you do fully release it after multiple delays or something. And that's in the case, like, for instance, if, like, let's just say Phantom Fury was announced way too soon, and that has something to do with why whatever amount of time, rushed, whatever, anything that happened internally, poor leadership and so on. If they would have waited longer to announce it, and they would have like ironed things out, or maybe they have what like a lot of Euro jank RPGs have, too much ambition for too small of a project, not enough money, but they're whatever. But it's just, there's a lot of things that if you have good leadership, you don't have to deal with these things. And if you got a bunch of people that are just money hungry and thinking about the wrong kind of things, it's just never going to be good in the end.
Well, it's taken Cyberpunk 2077, was it 2 years or something like that? It finally hit overwhelmingly positive on Steam. And, I mean, you don't want to be dealing with that.
They still didn't like technically like bring anything in that was originally promised. They just improved what was already there because they didn't have it technically finished when it released.
Yeah, I mean, it ran on Stadia best of all platforms, which everyone was like, what the hell, Stadia? You think PC, or at least
what a hit.
I know. I still have my Stadia. I bought into it just because I wanted to see this whole cloud gaming thing. I still have the Stadia
I'll admit that I was
in
insanely interested in Stadia, and I was interested in the capability and the future of cloud gaming. And I still think it has a potential future that is way off from ever being like sustainable because between like the amount of like what kind of internet people have and what they don't have, it's kind of like VR, right? VR has been around for an insanely long time, like more than 20 years, and then it's only really been like hugely in the public eye for like 10 or so, and then it's only been popular for like maybe the last 3 or 4, like where everyone can actually get their hands on it at a reasonable price. I think cloud's kind of that same way. Like you can play games on Xbox that are in Game Pass through cloud on your system, on your phone or whatever. Apparently you can also do it on your Oculus headset, which I found out the other day. And so you can do that, but even if you have really, really good internet, really fast internet, and you play cloud gaming, it still sucks. Like there's a lot of refreshing. It's still delayed and sluggish, so it's something that
I would
cool
agree and disagree. I use GeForce now just because it helps save on the storage space for the big games that I have on Steam, and 99% of the time, literally almost flawlessly, it plays as if it was native. I've forgotten what I was playing a couple of days ago, and it was I remember I completely forgot that it was cloud gaming. It felt Bright Memory Infinite.
I haven't used GeForce.
It's flawless. It's Stadia, for all its foibles that Google did. The technology behind it was extremely impressive. It did feel like it was a new platform. You know, it was the Office company made Xbox, the TV company made PlayStation, and then the search engine company came along with Stadia. And
I think it would have been cool if it wasn't. I think it would have been more successful maybe if we hadn't already had Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox as established things for so long. I mean, you're at a point now, like anything that has ever tried to enter the competition has always failed. And it's not, it's like, you know, Stadia bought a bunch of studios that were already established, but they weren't around long enough to even have an original game come out.
I know.
Well,
that was like an exclusive game. Like they weren't even around long enough to have that happen. So
they also completely screwed up just the idea that people had in their heads of what their service would be, which is that they would pay for a subscription and be able to stream games.
Yeah.
Right. But no, like it's like you had to pay full price for every game on Stadia, yet you don't own it. Like people, it's kind of like, why am I doing this? It felt like a half measure. The technology is super impressive.
It's kind of like Game Pass before Game Pass in a way.
Yeah, the messaging around it was bad. What all they really needed to do was either integrate it into YouTube. So you go on to 3D Realms page, and then there's a link saying play Phantom Fury or whatever, and you click it and it launches via. But Mayo, you're right in that I remember at the time that it came out, I understood what the product was, but yet the messaging that went out there and watching everyone get confused about it, I was like, Google, you're really fucking up here.
Yeah.
Stadia's a free gaming platform. Its business model was closer to like Xbox Live or PS Plus at the time.
How much did you have to pay for the controller and the little like
USB
the
Chromecast thing?
Your TV?
I've forgotten. I think I got it for like 100 or something like that. And then Google brought out their own little dongle called the Google TV, and they did a version of that with the Stadia controller. So it was essentially a Stadia controller.
Well, so if they would have done that, like, and it would have been, let's just say it was like $100 and whatever dollars,
they'd have done a lot better.
Right. Let's just say it was $120, $150 or something, and it was that, and then let's just say after you bought that functionality, you paid maybe $5 or $10 a month, like Game Pass, and you just got all these already established games, as well as they should have already been trying to develop simple games with studios prior to even launching it, that you could have had like that then and there, like, hey, you can't get this anywhere else. And then you're paying a subscription and you get, and you get, but like then you would have like, you have the down payment, then you would have like the monthly payment, and you get all these games for free versus paying for this cheap thing and then still having to buy the games and not owning the games.
Well, this is why they never said it's a free platform. You could use Stadia on anything you want for free. You just go on there, go on the website, buy a game, and you start playing it. They never mentioned it. All they kept talking about was this bloody Stadia Pro subscription, which was like PS Plus. You get a couple of games free a month, and then you get bumped up from 1080p to 4K and like 5.1 surround or something like that. And so everyone's thinking, wait, I got to pay for this subscription, and then I need, if I want to buy a game, I purchase games on there, and it completely killed it.
Right.
And Game Pass is going through the same sort of issue right now. It's plateaued, and I really think that Steam. I would imagine that for us as PC gamers, Steam is our preferred platform. No one buys from Epic Game Store, right? But
only Sifu, baby, only Sifu.
It was your game a year or something.
That
Sifu
like
was. I remember
sarcastic, but GOG is actually kind of amazing as a compliment to
GOG
Steam,
is
for sure.
Yeah,
GOG is great, absolutely,
very much so.
Yeah. I think that individual game purchases will always be not only now, they'll be the future. Subscription services are nice, but at the end of the day, you can't put everything into subscription service. And something like Steam, the only reason that I am into boomer shooters was that I found Steam, and then suddenly one game became 2 games, became 10 games, and suddenly I was into this thing called boomer shooters. And talking with you guys and watching YouTube channels like Under the Mayo. And I think it is the best business model that's out there. It's a tough business model. It's either all or nothing. When you put your full game out there, price it for what you want to price it at, and you'll live or die by the sales. Especially when you pair it with a publisher, and they got to be paid off before you see a dime if you're a dev. But subscription services, I don't think that it's the future. I really don't. There is a question I wanted to ask that we did have, which we haven't covered yet. And Medium spent a lot of time doing this script, so I do want to ask it. It says, how important is challenge and player accountability? Is it possible to have a good game without those things? Or is it simply the dev and player's best interest to do so?
Yeah, I guess it does. It does depend on the game that you're trying to make, right? Like, I don't want to say that you can't have fun with a game that is literally an open sandbox, right? Yeah. Like, of course, those games have their place, right? But I mean, when we're talking about video games, what are we actually talking about? We're talking about something where you got to beat it, right? Yeah. It's something you got to play and enjoy and learn and be challenged by and feel like you overcame something. Like, that's what most of us are talking about, aren't we? And so what are we talking about? Like, what are the systems behind that? What makes that experience happen? And that's become something just really fascinating for me to be looking into these years. And so I would say most games need to have it, but they need to have it in their own way, right? Like limiting your your movement, limiting your speed, limiting your vision. You can make games challenging in so many different ways, into where you have to overcome certain things. Maybe you have limited resources. There's always an obstacle. There's always a limitation in some way. And when you have complete freedom, and when the answer to every question is the same, every answer works for one question, then I don't know. I feel like you lose some people. You lose some people that need to get where a game wants them to be, and they don't get there automatically. And I think it's become really interesting to look at how games actually push you there. Yeah. And that's what I talk about when I talk about player accountability. Like, how does the player get where you want them, and how are you going to make sure that they never find it? How are you going to make sure players pick up your game, play it for an hour, and not see what's cool about your game? How are you going to make sure that you don't lose people? Yeah. Without making things uncomfortable and bad for the people who already get it.
I think that's the hardest selling point.
That's a hard balance.
Immersive sims, actually, the hardest selling point of them is the fact that
that's like the hardest thing to do right.
You have to have 100% like player accountability to like you give all the trust and stuff to the player to find all these things and find all these ways to do things, knowing that probably more than 50% of the game will not be potentially found. I mean, I guess the same could go for like some RPGs and stuff, where there's a lot more variability in how you play it and how you get to the end. And there's so much that you're not going to find. But it's the same time as like with immersive sims or something, a lot of people are put off by a lot of times things aren't explained, or you have to really, really think outside the box, and it almost completely breaks your way of thinking about a video game to the point that it makes someone not want to play anymore, or things are so obscure that people just don't get it, or if they have to go and look it up online or look up a guide, then it's probably going to put someone off. They're not going to play the game. If it's too, if there's not good enough, like
you got to know your audience, right? You gotta know who you're appealing to, and how to get them there. And you have to have a target audience, and you also have to have people that you want to come in. You always need people coming in, right? And being interested. When you play the fourth or fifth entry of a game, sometimes that's the first one you played. And a game shouldn't assume that you already know what's up.
Yeah, I agree. There's no more questions off the top of my head that I wanted to ask you about, because I wanted to talk about. Sorry, mate.
I said I had one. I say it was percolating, because we were mentioning Praise 2017. I know that's one of Mayo's.
I was just about to talk about that as well.
Okay, go for it. You do your thing. I'll piggyback on it if you need to. You said it.
No, but my question may have been completely different. Mine was in reference to the Xbox situation where Arcane is, unfortunately, Austin is not going to be operating. They were the ones that really, in my opinion, really took the immersive sim moniker and kind of ran with it. When you think, in my opinion, immersive sims, I think Arcane, the Dishonored, and that sort of thing.
Well, the biggest in the AAA space right now, for sure.
Yes, yeah. Are there any other companies out there that you think that will pick up that title, or do you think even the employees of that company should go on and form their own, and carry on the legacy of Arcane? This was actually a general question for all of you. I'd like to, hear all your takes.
I'll jump in real briefly, but I was going to say that technically, when Rafael Colantonio left for personal reasons for a while, and then came back and created Wolf-Eye Games with Julian Roby, technically they are carrying the old Arcane forward, and I mean they've been since Prey 2017. I mean, Weird West has been the closest thing to that game that's come out, aside from what's that game called, Control Ego, and like some other indie M-Sims that have been filling, mostly that's the only thing that's been filling the void, but most of those obviously don't have like big names behind them, whereas Wolf-Eye has Raphael of Arcane. And I hope actually that a lot of the big names that were left at Austin, if they don't go to Lyon, I hope that they go to Wolf-Eye and help on what they're doing next. I think that would be really cool. Or even if they don't want to do that, I mean, hell, they just go and make their own studio, do something else. That'd be cool too. So
we do at least see immersive sim spiritually, like going to other places where it normally wasn't. Like Amnesia the Bunker last year was like part immersive sim, and then I did a video on how like I want Resident Evil to learn from that, and that it already kind of is. The Resident Evil 4 remake has a couple moments where it's like, oh, you got to go up and around, but if you look through the window, you can shoot the lock on the door and you can go in through the other side. Like multiple solutions to problems. That's all what immersive sims are all about, right? Lots of creative solutions to do one thing. And I started to see it in Resident Evil 4. I'm like, wow, we have two great horror games this year that have immersive sim elements, one more than the other. And maybe it would be cool if immersive sim just wasn't a genre in itself. I would just love to see immersive sim sort of infect more things.
Yeah, we need more of those games that kind of do like what Metal Gear Solid 3 did, for instance. Those ways that you can beat the end.
Sure.
You can like hear his breaths in the distance if you use the microphone, which blew my mind when I was just like doing it the hard way, just following him around. And I was just like, what? You can do that? Or how the cigarettes, show the lasers in the first one. And I was like, are you kidding me? That's the one use for that, and I didn't think of that. Come on,
I think that's true. I mean, I think it's just because those games always have such a high level of, detailed level design and layouts to give you so many different outcomes to both the endings, everything in between, or even the beginning. And there's so much to miss that you always want to come back and do it again because I would say even when even games like the Outer Worlds does something similar, like it's more RPG in nature, but it's also kind of immersive semi, like it's like Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines in that way. Like it has some more immersive sim elements than Fallout or not Fallout like the original, but like Fallout 3 or New Vegas or something like that. But it's just when you see those kind of games that give you these layered approaches to things, it's just not, you don't see it that often, which is why they stand out. But it's also simultaneously the reason that they're so hard to sell to people as well.
Medium, you were gonna mention something about Prey.
What was that? I think
I can get any dead air.
I was just curious as like a talking point. I'm not even implying this is real, because I know people really bounced off of that one pretty hard in probably ways they shouldn't have. But I was curious if anybody ever thought there might be anything about Prey's design, at least up front, that might have inadvertently put people off and not given them the. I mean, it's not really their fault in a sense, but I was just curious if anybody had noticed anything that they might be looking at and going, well, I can see something how in the first hour that might be something so unusual, even though it's brilliant. Is because it's unusual to be that brilliant that it might have passed people by and they might have just written it off and gone, this isn't responding like the normal way it should. Ugh, just done. Because there were so many people that are like, come from out of the woodworks whenever you mentioned Preset 2017. They're like, pre 2006 is so much better. I couldn't stand that stupid game where the crowbar or whatever couldn't hit the monster at all, and it was clunky and weird, and then it was buggy, and they give up in the first 30 minutes. And I'm just like, what is about that first 30 minutes is so drastically different?
I don't know
if
freak
out.
It's boring.
I don't know if I.
It's boring. I'm sorry. The first 30 minutes of Prey is boring.
But it's so what? The first 30 minutes of Half-Life is boring? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Damn it, Robert.
There's hot takes all over the place. It's
podcast can't have this.
What makes Prey brilliant is that the initial boringness of it is part of its story design, because you're going through that long tutorial was them testing the Typhon injections in your body. Spoilers, sorry, but like it makes sense. Like when you look back through it and you replay that first quote unquote boring section, you have a completely different context for what you're going through. Now you're listening exactly to what the doctors are telling you to do when they tell you to crouch and jump. You're like, oh wow. So I will admit the opening part. I mean, the reveal of the space. That you're on a studio through the mirror is one of the most brilliant moments in gaming. Yeah, and so is the intro on the helicopter. Yeah. But what you're doing technically is boring tasks because your character is going through
the point I'm making, is that it's intentionally boring.
Yeah,
it's parts of the pacing of it. It doesn't mean that it's bad.
Kind of like games like that have those boring beginnings that are giving you so much that once you start again, it's got a whole nother context. It changes everything about it. I mean, you could say Half-Life, you could say Prey 2017, you could say Half-Life 2, or even Doom 3, or I'm running out of examples. Deus Ex potentially.
I don't think Doom 3 started slow though. The pace of that was pretty consistent in my opinion.
It's spooky, but it's slow.
You're kind of inching your way.
It's very slow. I mean, you're literally on a train, or not a train, but you're on a ship that comes in, and then you're on a.
I know, but you go into it with it knowing it's a horror game, so that you're not expecting it to be balls to the wall straight away.
No. What? Okay, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'm getting the context of what you're talking about, but. I mean, when I'm saying slow, I mean, because I'm not talking about like the gameplay. I'm just talking about the beginning. Is like the beginning of the game is inherently a copy of Half-Life 1 and its entire introductory thing. You spend more than 30 minutes just walking and talking.
Yeah.
Like you spend nearly an hour just walking and talking until you finally get a gun. And even when you get a gun, like you're still not shooting anything for a while.
You might shoot a few things, but then you have no more ammo.
Well, yeah, there are some things you can shoot, but
unless you're playing the
if you walk into the clinic, Have y'all,
speaking of Doom 3's intro, have y'all seen that little Easter egg where you go up behind the guy and that meets you at the at the desk, that if you linger off his shoulder, have you seen when he starts typing?
Oh, that's a real thing.
No,
I thought that was
looked
just
at
a skit in Civi's video.
No,
No way.
It happens.
No way.
I replicated it.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny. He starts being like, this despicable guy that we just brought here is like looking over my shoulder, super rude. I think you should, like write him up or something. It's something like that.
That's okay. I did not know that was in there. That's kind of cool.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Cool.
Mayo, how many games has your little avatar appeared in? I know that it's been in Turbo Overkill, and I watched a video a few days ago with it on the floor somewhere as well.
Mayonnaise is everywhere, Robert. You can buy it
my
anywhere.
icon is in Sprawl. Yes.
Sprawl.
It is in Sprawl.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in the tutorial section. Like after you learn how to do that weird wall run that Sprawl has, it was really fucking awkward, right? To kind of figure out.
It was a little awkward,
but right after that, and then there's he hit it around the corner there.
That's the game I was playing on GeForce Now.
And I'm in Deadlink. I'm in the vending machine of Deadlink.
Yeah,
and, I'm also
Deadlink.
I'll have a little surprise appearance in Mullet Mad Jack next week as well.
Oh really?
Oh, yeah.
Really? Good. Is it going to be Mayo with a mullet?
Mayo with a mullet.
Mayo with a mullet. Yeah. It wasn't meant to come out that way. I just pictured the icon with like a big anime mullet behind it. Yeah.
I was gonna say that like Prey 2017, the reason I think the intro isn't like being slow or anything, I don't even think that any of that has anything to do with people getting turned off. I think it's once that's over, and people get into the actual game, and it's the overall game itself is actually relatively slow. I think that the game itself being slow, and if you focus on just shooting things, that is the absolute worst approach to go about in the entire game. And people who were expecting Prey 2006 style stuff are put off.
Dead Space,
slow.
Something Dead Spacey.
Or something Dead Spacey. And then people who don't know what an immersive sim is or what Prey 2006 is, who go into a game thinking that it's just a first-person shooter because the absolute dog shit marketing that made it look like a first-person shooter. They go into it and they're like, oh, this is what? I don't even know how to play this game. It says I can do whatever I want. I can play my way. And then it blows their mind because most people I've seen even play the game just are overwhelmed by the amount of things you can do that they absolutely lose sight of what you're even supposed to do.
Yeah, I was surprised too, and I kind of asked the question because it's like BioShock exists, and it's not like that was like a little indie game,
right?
And not that that's some incredible immersive sim, but it gives you it's like there's no other game I think that's impressed me right away and felt as much like playing BioShock for the first time. So I almost wonder how it wasn't like, unless people just literally didn't play that game. But
look, I mean, BioShock is a game that has a compass. You've got a compass that tells you where to go. I mean, you have your waypoints in Prey, but you can't even kind of in your mind, you can't even spatially relate where you're going in Prey at first. Because the ship doesn't make sense to you, because you don't know the map vertical. The map is vertical. It's unintuitive.
Yeah.
And so you don't even really understand where you're going. And then it takes a couple hours for you to you get out of the ship, and then you see, and you're like, oh,
yeah,
wow, this is complete opposite map that I was expecting. Now it all makes sense. Then you're able to kind of follow your compass more. But it's by that point you've had so much openness that it's a very different kind of gameplay experience.
Very much so.
I'm surprised more people didn't just turn it up because of how hard it is to hit the Typhon with that fucking crowbar thing at first. You're just like, these are controls.
That's why you use the glue gun. That's why the glue gun's there, right?
Did you get the question that we asked before you cut out?
I don't think I did. I was wondering what it was.
Okay, then I want to see your reaction.
Yeah, we were like a little worried. We were like, damn, was that question like a real stump?
Okay.
No, but yeah.
Well, maybe it is. We'll see.
No, yeah. Well, the funny thing was I prefaced it as, okay, I got one final question for you, and it's an easy one. And then there was like dead silence. We're like, oh shit. Okay, so
no, I restarted the PC.
Yeah. Okay. So the question is. It's not a hard one, but it is an important one. If you didn't have a mayo, what is the most important condiment? Like if mayo didn't exist, what would your second condiment you couldn't live without be?
Everyone assumes that I love mayo for some reason. It's all right. It's good on a burger, But come on, right? Turkey and Swiss sandwich with mayo, sure, I love it, but it's far from my favorite condiment. Under the mayo is just something that just sounded funny.
When I first heard it, I was like, that is the weirdest YouTube name ever, under the
it's
mayo.
It's just something I said one day. I just said to put something under the mayo on a sandwich. And I thought the words sounded funny together. Yeah. And I needed a Call of Duty name to play Black Ops Zombies on PlayStation. I was like, I guess I'll just call myself Under the Mayo. Oh, whatever. And then the next year I started making Mortal Kombat stuff. And I said, I'll just keep using that. And now it's the whole, I got a whole fucking icon.
Well,
if Mayo didn't
I guess
exist,
it's better than people thinking you're an autistic furry because of your name and your avatar. So not inherently that those are necessarily bad things, but just that people assume them about you, then treat you as such, and then they're very disappointed when you don't line up with their impression of the terms you chose.
The question was my second favorite condiment under mayo. I guess my first favorite condiment would be, God, it might have to be blue cheese.
You heard it here.
Blue cheese goes with everything.
Interesting.
That goes with everything, sandwiches, fries, wings, salads. I just love blue cheese. And after that, it might have to be balsamic vinaigrette.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. I
like culture.
Yeah, not just on salads, but on other foods as well.
It's nice on bread as well. Yeah, just dipped into.
Yeah. Sandwiches, just delicious.
Nice. Excellent.
All right, so who's outroing today? Is it me? Or is it you, Robert?
Oh man, we're done. I could talk to you guys about so many more shooters and stuff.
We would love to, and you, yes,
we have you on again for sure.
Absolutely, yes.
We got Sulaco coming out. Mullet Mad Jack comes out next week.
Yeah,
right. There's some good stuff coming out.
Tons of fun stuff to talk about.
I think you did the outro last time. Did you?
Oh, I think I did. Yeah.
All right. Let me get my faggot in order so I can look at the screen.
Just toss it around a little bit.
I'm not even fit back like this, like some sort of chump. All right.
It's okay. We're all a little fluffy sometimes.
Yeah. So, thank you for watching Lord have mercy, I'm editing that out. Thanks for watching the Quad Damage podcast. We'd like to thank our guest, Under the Mayo, for joining us for today's discussion. If you want to check us out, Deadforge, where can the viewers find you?
You can find me on Twitter/X at Lord of the RPG, and you can find me on YouTube, Patreon, and Twitch at Deadforge. I think that sums it up.
Nice. Medium, where can everyone find you?
Yeah, you can find me at High Functioning Medium on YouTube and High Funk Medium on X or Twitter or whatever your preferred name of that platform is.
Nice. So other than Under Some Mayo, where can people find you?
Well, I mean, of course, there's my YouTube channel. We're talking about a lot of classic stuff right now. I just did some old God of War stuff. I did old DMC games. I might talk about Resident Evil 0. I stream occasionally on Twitch, but not very much. And random thoughts on Twitter sometimes.
Excellent. And HyperVerse, of course, can be found on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We have a Patreon, and don't bother visiting the website. It's crap.
We got a Snapchat yet? No.
A Snapchat? Do I look like a Snapchat? I might as well just play Fortnite and listen to Taylor Swift. Yeah.
Well, you since the very beginning, you always said everything except for Snapchat. So I got to keep asking if you got a Snapchat yet.
Yeah, I'm on Vine. Do you remember Vine?
I do remember Vine. Thank you very much, and it was much better than TikTok.
Yeah, well, TikTok has its uses. It's an absolute pain in the ass editing for portrait. There really is. Yeah, cool. So that's all for today, folks. So all together now. Mayo has no idea what we're gonna say.
No, I have no idea.
Keep on booming.
Keep on booming.
Yes.
Always flawless.
Every sense togetherness there. We picked up the other person left off.
Closer.
Thank you guys. It was fun.
Nice one.
Quad